Going over IRS notice CP 187. This is a notice that you might receive as a reminder of overdue taxes. In this particular notice, it's for IRS Form 941, which is an employer in employment tax form. So we'll go through step by step what you should do if you receive this notice. I want to start off first with a couple of key observations up in the top of the form or notice. So in the upper right hand corner, you see the notice number CP 187, the tax period ending December 31st, 2016. And the notice date is probably the most important piece of information here. If the IRS is asking you to take action, there's usually a due date that's tied to the notice date. So in this case, we're obviously talking about paying back taxes. That timeline is usually 21 days from the notice date. So we'll see that a little bit later in the notice. Employer ID number, contact phone number. So again, keep in mind the notice date. And then also over here on the left-hand side, name and address fields for the taxpayer. So because you have limited time frame to take action, you'll want to make sure that you're keeping your address up to date with the IRS and so that you can receive your correspondence as quickly as possible. When you file your tax return, the IRS will normally update your tax record with your new address. But if you're in between tax return seasons, then you may want to either call the IRS or you can file the change of address form. IRS Form 8822 for individual taxpayers. In this case, this is for business owners, so that would be IRS Form 8822-B. We'll put links in the show notes to resources we've created about forms and mentioned in this video, so you can read the article or the video or watch the video on those two tax forms in the show notes. So this basically is breaking down how much this taxpayer owes for back taxes due on IRS Form 941. So it's broken down into the actual tax liability, the interest that's accumulated, and then the failure to file penalty. And all of this is due roughly within 21 days of that notice date. So if you're already working with the IRS, you don't need to do anything additional. This is simply an automated letter that may or may not reflect that you're already working with a representative. If you want to mail in your payment, you should use this payment voucher. You would write a check or money order payable to the U.S. Treasury, write your employer ID number, the tax period, and the form number on your payment, as well as any correspondence that you're attaching to this voucher. Of course, you can also pay electronically, and in today's day and age, depending on if your area is subject to mail theft, that might be a better alternative. One thing to keep in mind is that this address here is not necessarily the same as the address up here in the top left corner. So even though those are both Ogden, Utah IRS offices, that one has a P.O. box number. That happens to be the same one. Stop 5300, I'm not sure if that would route to a different place within that IRS building. But I have seen these notices where this address is in a completely different city and different IRS office than the letterhead address. So always, if you're going to send payment, always use the address that's on the payment voucher, not necessarily the one that's in the letterhead. So if you're not working with the IRS, then here are some options. You can pay the amount due to avoid additional penalty and interest. And then it walks through how you can pay electronically. Installment agreements, you can go to the IRS website and learn more about that. With this amount of tax, you may need to file IRS Form 9465. That's the request, the installment agreement request. So just keep in mind that you should do something. And while you're submitting an installment agreement request and the IRS is taking it into consideration, the collections process stops. However, anytime the action comes back onto you, the IRS will notify you that the collections process is about to begin again. So if you don't take any action, then you'll stay in the collections process the whole time. You'll eventually go down the road of the IRS placing a lien on property, followed by a levy where they actually seize the property, all in an effort to try and pay down your tax bill. So if you don't do anything, they'll keep adding interest and penalties. They'll send you reminder notices. If a lien was filed, then it's going to go against your credit and reduce your ability to use your property the way you want. So if you have a lien on a building that your business owns, then if you try to sell the building, the IRS will get their money before you get yours. In this section, there's a section about breaking down the penalties and how they're calculated. So you can take a look at that. If you want to change your contact information, you can do so. You can also request a reduction or removal of penalties. So there are a couple of ways that this might occur. One would be reasonable cause. So there are certain circumstances like an economic hardship, loss of financial records, family member's death, where you can request an abatement or a reduction of penalties under the reasonable clause or reasonable cause category. The IRS also has a wide degree of discretion under the first time abatement program. So if you've never had penalties or it's been a very long time, you may be eligible for that. Or if you specifically wrote for advice on a particular issue, you gave the IRS complete and accurate information, you received a written letter back from the IRS that you used for your tax return, and then if the IRS penalizes you on top of that, then you can also request a removal of those penalties based on erroneous written advice. And for all of those, you would request that abatement on IRS Form 843. So abating interest is a little bit more difficult. You can't really do that directly. However, if you do manage to get your taxes reduced or your penalties removed, then the interest that's calculated on either that tax or the penalty or both would be recalculated as if you never owed the tax in the first place. And then, so this is a breakdown on a quarterly schedule of how interest rates are calculated. So you can kind of imagine that if there's a part, if part of your tax that's attributable to this time frame here gets removed, then they would go back and recalculate minus that 8% on whatever was removed. So there's a link here you can go to. Let's just see if there's any additional information. There's not a whole lot of additional information here. Here's a link to that installment agreement request. We'll put a link to in the show notes to resources about those. You can also check out these FAQs, but they don't really have a whole lot of detailed information. So most of the information that we saw was in the notice itself, which brings us back to the beginning. So in short, this is a payment due notice. Just a reminder, take some sort of action to prevent the IRS from going further into the collections process. So as I mentioned, we'll put links in the show notes to articles and videos we've created on forms mentioned here. So if you like our articles, please subscribe to our newsletter. If you like our YouTube videos, please subscribe to our channel. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, or if there's another topic that you'd like to see covered in an upcoming video, please hit me up in the comments section. Thank you very much and have a great day.